Greetings, History 141 students. John Fia here, your professor. Megan Piet, the producer, is behind the camera as usual. Today we're going to talk about our last seminar. We only have actually one more seminar left. I guess it depends on when you're watching this. But our last seminar last week, we read together the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, an American slave. We read this particular Bedford version edited by David Blight. I think it does a nice job, has a nice introduction. But we read this. One of the things that I like to say when I teach this document is, so often in this class we spend a lot of time on talking about slavery as a political idea, or the stopping the spread of slavery into the western states and so forth. But we often times miss out on the sort of real human experience of slavery when we talk about it in such sort of general or political terms. So I think it was important for me as I designed this course to have you read a first-hand account of what slavery was like, and there's really none better than Frederick Douglass's narrative. You may notice that I don't have the Founding Fathers Pez dispensers here with me today. And I think I did that for a reason. And one of the reasons is I think slavery and the existence of slavery and the fact that slavery lasts for so long in the United States, I think it's one of the scars on the founding of this country. And I think it's one of the things that we need to be critical of when we talk about the founding fathers and their so-called greatness, or their, or even their flaws. I mean, I think we need to remember that these founding fathers did allow the institution of slavery to go on when they certainly could have brought it to an end at various points, whether it be during the period of the Declaration of Independence, the founding, or whether it be in the construction or the framing of the Constitution, and so forth. So I just think it's for a day like this to discuss slavery. It's probably maybe not appropriate to have the Pez dispensers here, so we're missing them today. I'm sure they'll return at some point, though. What did we talk about when we talked about Douglass and slavery? I wanted you to see really two things out of this text. The first part of this was, obviously, this is a window into the institution of antebellum or pre-Civil War slavery. I hope you saw in many ways the diversity, for example, of slavery, that Douglass is working on a plantation in the Chesapeake. He's doing urban work. Sometimes he's tightly governed or tightly supervised. Sometimes he's not. He even has opportunity at times to make money. So again, hopefully you saw that slavery is not just the kind of cotton plantation slavery we often associate with the Deep South. Also, of course, see this institution of slavery both in terms of its physical dimensions, the beatings, the whippings, and so forth, but also in terms of its psychological dimensions. And one of the things I'm going to challenge you to do if you're going to write this last paper on Douglass is to think about both the physical and the psychological dimensions of slavery. And there are multiple examples that we could bring up, and we did bring them up when we discussed this text during seminar. The other thing related to this idea of slavery is, one of the interesting things as a sort of literary question is, at what point in the narrative, if slavery is psychological bondage, perhaps even more than physical bondage, at what point in the narrative is Douglass then truly free? One of the things that always amazes me every time I read the narrative is he doesn't spend a lot of time about talking about his escape or when he becomes physically free from the southern plantation bondage that he's a part of. But there are moments in that text, whether it's his brawl or his fight with Mr. Covey, whether it be him staring off and looking at the ships and wondering why he's a slave. There are these moments where he's determined to not be held back by this institution. And in some ways, I think Douglass is more psychologically free before he's actually physically free. So those might be some interesting things to think about. The other dimension of this book, I want you to see this book as a sort of quintessential American tale. Remember, early in the semester we read Franklin and his autobiography. There's a lot of similarities between these two books. Douglass wants to learn to read. He wants to improve himself. He wants to, have the opportunity to pursue liberty, to pursue freedom. these kinds of things. The same thing that Franklin was interested in doing. But here's the catch, right? Franklin, in a free society like Philadelphia, is able to do that. Douglass, in a slave society, is unable to pursue those kind of American values, to pursue his version of the American dream, whether that comes through reading or ambition or so forth. And I think in many ways that's the essence of slavery in early America. The idea that this system of labor holds down millions of people who are unable to pursue the kind of American dream or the kind of American ambition that people like Benjamin Franklin were able to do, in this case 100 or so years earlier. So think about this. Some of you are going to write the paper again on Douglass, start to process this text, and actually be thankful that you get a chance to read such good American literature in this course. Again, this is one of those classic books that I don't think you can graduate from college without having read. So I hope you enjoyed Douglass's narrative, and we will see you next time on the Virtual Office Hours. Have a good day.